Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Enneagram Readathon and the 4+ books that I read for that, and then also kind of a August mid-month check-in. So let's get started. The Enneagram Readathon ran for the first 2 weeks of August. It finished yesterday, and I had a really fun time. I was one of co-captains for Team 3, the Achievers, and my co-captain was Sahar from Basically Bookish Reads. There was a lot of hosts, there were a lot of participants. I thought it went amazingly well. There were so many awesome group reads, and the Discord was just really busy, and there were a lot of great conversations happening. So let's discuss what I read for the Enneagram Readathon. The Team 3 prompts were to read a book with an ambitious character, and for this I chose The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. So I actually thought this book was going to be a women's fiction book, but I chose it because one of our main male characters, Noah, is a ambitious, best-selling novelist, writer, and he is determined to kind of take on this challenge in this book and write a best-selling, amazing romance book. So I thought that sounded pretty ambitious, and ultimately I really enjoyed The Things We Leave Unfinished. I actually really enjoyed it. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's basically a dual timeline, multiple point of view romance. We follow two different couples falling in love and their sort of love story. And it's also strong historical fiction elements because one of those couples is falling in love during World War II. So we have those kind of elements. And Noah, as I already mentioned, he is trying to finish a romance book by Scarlett, who is the woman in the earlier timeline. And so her book that he is trying to finish is her love story. So it all weaves together, and I really enjoyed this. I felt like the writing was fantastic. It really pulled me along. I did feel there was a little bit of sort of insta love happening between both couples, but the World War II one was just this whirlwind war romance, and we get to see a little bit of time of their romance. And I think that the tension of the war part and them being in constant danger kind of heightened those feelings, but also their love was just told in such an intense way, and a truly a really meaningful way. And so even though it did seem very fast and I wanted to know more about how they fell in love, why they fell in love, it felt really realistic to me and very well developed over the course of the book. And we also get snippets of letters between these two, and so that just heightened the romance and the intensity. And then in the sort of current day plotline, we're also seeing these two characters fall for each other, and that's a little bit it's definitely a much shorter time frame window, so it's sort of them falling in love as opposed to more of their romance story together. But I also really like that part. I'm a sucker for when they're falling in love. And so this book just pushed all my buttons, really liked it. I ended up giving The Things We Leave Unfinished a solid 5 stars. I think that is it an absolutely perfect book? No, but also I really enjoyed it. So I felt like it fit the ambitious character prompt, and also I'm very happy that I read this book. The next Team 3 prompt was read a book where a character discovers their own identity. And so for this I had chosen Chasing Redbird by Sharon Creech. This was a book that I read many moons ago, probably 2001-ish. And remember really enjoying from that time in my life when I was a preteen. So this was a reread. It was just something that kind of popped up on my radar not that long ago, and I thought, I want to reread that. And in my memory, it was very coming of age, self-reflection, figuring a lot about herself as Zinni, who's a 13-year-old main character, as she kind of comes into her own and figures out her own self. I do think that there are strong elements of that in this book, but definitely after reading it, it's much more about grief as a process. So basically the plot of this book is that Zinni is 13 and she has discovered this old trail that is really overgrown behind her house or family homestead, and she is working on clearing this trail. And also kind of mixed in with this, she is trying to figure out who she is. She has a lot of siblings, and she has had recent family deaths, of people that she really felt close to, and also less recent family deaths of people she was really close to. So she's still kind of working to process all of those feelings. And so on this reread, I definitely still really enjoyed it. I didn't remember quite so strongly these elements of grief, but I did think that they were handled pretty well. There was also like sort of like a stronger like mystery aspect to it that I didn't quite remember, and that part was less well done for me on this read through, and now that I'm a little old lady. But I still enjoyed Chasing Redbird. I think it was mostly a nostalgia read for me, and I do think that because it was sort of a coming of age book, it does to some extent fit this prompt, but it was maybe not the best choice ever to fit this prompt. But ultimately, yeah, I'm going to give Chasing Redbird like a solid 3.5 to 4 stars just for nostalgia's sake. The next Team 3 prompt was read a book with a game or a challenge or a competition. Originally, I had chosen Gideon the Ninth for this, but I ended up pushing that book back because it's for a real life book club that is later in the month. And so also it's like kind of more intense than I thought it was going to be. So I wanted something I could get through a little quicker. So I ended up reading Check Please Book 2, Sticks and Scones by Ngozi Ukazu. And I had recently read Check Please Book 1, I think about a month ago, maybe the end of July, maybe the end of June. And I really, really enjoyed that. I chose the main character, Eric Biddle, as one of my most recent like favorite fictional characters. And that's because we follow Eric Biddle. And in this book, book 2, he is in his junior and senior year of college, and he is in a relationship with a guy who used to be the captain of this hockey team his college hockey team. And so this, over the course of these 2 years, this book, they're trying to navigate this relationship because his boyfriend has like gone pro in the hockey league of, is it American League or Canadian League? Whatever. He's not out. And so their relationship is a secret, and he is not, it's a secret from like kind of everybody. And then it is kind of that is something that they're navigating throughout the course of this book. So I really enjoyed returning to this world. Like I said, Eric is like, Biddy is just so cute. He is a baker, but he also is just like really in touch with his emotions. And then there's also this very strong college vibe and sort of a bro fraternity vibe that I really enjoyed and was very like nostalgic for me in my college times. Not that I was in a frat, but like there was just a lot of elements there that I was like, yes, I'm loving this. I did feel a little bit like I wanted more out of their romance, but I also kind of understood the elements that were presented. I'm trying not to be like too spoilery, but this does feature competitions and challenges because both of our, 2 main male characters are on hockey teams and competing in championships and competing to constantly win hockey games. So I counted that for the competition. And ultimately I would give the Sticks and Scones book, I think I'm going to go with like a 4.3, 4.5. I really liked it. There was just like a couple things that I was kind of like, oh, you almost had it, but not quite. So I'm going to give it a solid 4 stars, maybe like a 4+ stars. And the last book for the Team 3 was to do a buddy read, and our Team 3 buddy read was The Shadows Between Us. The Shadows Between Us by Tricia Levenseller. So I read this book. I have a lot of feelings about it. I might do my own review. It would be kind of ranty. So let me know down in the comments if you want a full review, but I'm going to try to not rant right now. The Shadows Between Us is a YA fantasy romance, and we follow Alessandra and Callias. Alessandra is she is just like a badass, like selfish, murdering, blackmailing, Slytherin character as described by both the author and lots of people on the internet. And basically this is it says right on the inside flap, which is what drew me to this book, was that her plan that we know at the top of the book is that her plan is to woo and then marry and then kill the Shadow King because she wants power. She wants to become the queen. She wants to rule the land. Okay, cool. I'm like, awesome. This is really great. So, and honestly, I felt like it started very strongly where we had like within the first 2 chapters, we learned that Alessandra has murdered somebody, her like first love when she was like 15, buried his body, and she's taken many lovers since then, and she only takes lovers that she like has blackmail on so she can hold something over their head and that she can preserve her own reputation, kind of manage her own narrative. And I'm like, okay, this is a lot, but like also kind of yay. There was like these feminist themes throughout the whole book. And so then she goes to the ball, she meets the king, gains his interest. I think I'm going to do a rant on this book, but not here. So over the course of this book, the two of them kind of do start to, they fake date and then they eventually fall in love with each other. And we get a happily ever after at the end of the book. But this writing style just was not for me. I felt like the dialogue was terrible. I did not care at all what people were wearing or what they were eating, and there was plenty of those descriptions. This book was just not really for me. It felt like everybody was too concerned with what they were doing and how they were like appearing, which like I could believe to some extent, but this seemed like almost satirical. And Alessandra was the only one who could like get anything accomplished. The plot was meh. Like I felt like the book started really strong and then just like took a left turn and did not deliver and was just kind of blah. So ultimately, I don't know that this was a book for me. I can't tell if it was like the writing or if it was because it was YA or what, but ultimately I was just kind of like bored and annoyed. It did read very quickly, but I was just really underwhelmed and it annoyed me a lot. So I'm going to go with like a 2-star rating for The Shadows Between Us. But I did complete the buddy read. So those were the 4 main books, 4x4 prompts for the Enneagram Readathon, and those were the 4 that I used to earn my team points. And then I'm going to go ahead and talk about the other 3 books that I read in the first 2 weeks of August, or that I finished the first 2 weeks of August, that I also managed to fit in to earn points for the Enneagram Readathon. There was a prompt to read a romance, and I was like, that's easy. So I finished It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey and counted this as a read a romance prompt. So that earned me more points. It Happened One Summer is a romance book, contemporary, where our main character it's sort of based on Schitt's Creek, where the main character, Piper, is sort of based off of Alexis from Schitt's Creek. And Piper is this spoiled rich girl who like lives on Instagram, and her only thing she knows how to do is throw parties and be beautiful. And so when she kind of throws a party that gets out of hand and ends up in jail, her family bails her out, but her stepfather is like, no more of this nonsense, you need to grow up. And so he sort of punishes her by sending her off to a small town in Washington State along the coast, where her biological father had and mother had like first like met, and she lived for the first couple of years of her life, and where her biological father passed away because he was a like sea-hardened fisherman. And so this book follows Piper and her sister Hannah, who go to this town, and it's very like, oh my god, everyone's poor here. And but over the course of the book, she of course meets a grumpy fisherman guy who is like super buff and super hot, and Brendan is awesome, and they fall in love, even though it's a very opposites attract situation. And also both Hannah and Piper start sort of carving out a space for themselves in this small town. And they also like meet their grandmother, and I really enjoyed this book. This is the second Tessa Bailey I have read. I like this better than Fixed Her Up. Again, in both books, I felt like there was this like sort of wholesomeness, this very like regular, like, I don't want to say girl next door, but like a wholesome sweetness to a lot of the text. And then bam, she just hits you with the steamy scenes, and they are like top notch. It almost feels like it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And I wouldn't say that there's like kinks in either of the books, but there's definite like kind of, it's not like just plain old like loving vanilla sex. Like, it's definitely like down and dirty sex, and it's good. It's good steam. So I did like this book quite a bit. I like the opposites attract element. I ultimately really enjoyed that Brendan has his own past, and he is kind of working through that throughout this book. He doesn't just completely dismiss his past and switch immediately to Piper. And also, I really like that both of them ultimately like accept the other person and don't work to change themselves, or don't feel that the other person doesn't appreciate them for who they are. Like, you know, Brendan likes and finds it adorable that Piper loves her shoes and loves to shop, and she's this inherent girly girl, and he doesn't ever want her to change. And I thought that was really great. So I really enjoyed It Happened One Summer, and ultimately I'm going to give it a solid 4.5 stars. One other team prompt was read a thriller / mystery, and I finished Leave the World Behind by Rumaan Alam earlier in the month, and I vlogged it, so I will leave a link up here to my vlog and you can go check that out. So very briefly, this is a vague thriller, like sort of like an atmospheric mystery, I guess, where we follow like a family and then this other couple who are like in the sticks, and something is happening, but no one really knows what. It seems to be the start of the end of the world. And that's the best description I can give about this book, because nothing really happens in this book. This family goes on vacation. Something is happening out there far away. The couple who owns the Airbnb comes back, and then the rest of the book is just them being like, what's happening? We don't have any information. What's happening? We don't have any information. Like, this is mysterious. I really did not like the writing style. I felt like the word choices were weird. I felt like the characterization was, the characterization was kind of consistent, but also this book just didn't work for me. I did not like to read it. I would have totally DNF'd it if it was not for a real life book club, and no one in our book club really liked it either. It was very like middle of the road. It felt a little bit to me sort of pretentious. It was just like atmospheric and vague. It was never like actually thrilling. We don't get any resolution on the mystery or the like elements of what was actually happening. So for me, Leave the World Behind should have been left behind for me personally, and I ultimately only rated it 2 stars. And the last book that I'm going to mention here in my wrap up is a book that I read in the first 2 weeks of August, and it was to fulfill the prompt of read a book that has a seemingly perfect character. So I finished The Mammoth Hunters, which is the 3rd book in the Earth's Children series by Jean M. Auel. I actually listened to this whole series years ago and kind of had a hankering for getting back into the like vibes of the series. So I picked up where I had last left off at my last attempt to reread a couple years ago with this 3rd book. So it's hard to describe, but basically we follow our main character of Ayla, and she is like practically perfect. Like, her only flaw is that she can't really sing, and like that's it. Like, this whole book series is set in like prehistoric times, so there are sort of like Neanderthals and cavemen and early humans, and so Ayla like domesticates wolves and invents the needle and figures out how to use like flint and iron pyrite as like fire strikers, and she maybe has like magical abilities. She's kind of like a shaman. She's absolutely stunningly beautiful and gorgeous that every man is instantly attracted to her. So sometimes that can really great. And also I did listen to this on audiobook because years ago I ripped the CDs from the library. So I have the audiobooks, but they are in CD format, and I can't figure out how to make them play faster on my classic iPod because I'm old. So I had to listen to this book at 1x. And it was hard. It was very difficult to both put up with the writing at 1x, but also to put up with the narration at 1x. So I don't know that I'm going to continue the series unless I can get the audiobooks digitally from my library so I can speed them up, because it was just like too painful to listen to at 1x. But this is a reread. This book in particular deals with a lot of emotional drama where like the 2 main characters like have a miscommunication and then spend the entire book being like, I wonder what's wrong with him. I wonder what's wrong with her. And everyone else around her is like, I can see the problem here, but I'm not going to help or give anyone any advice. And it ends very abruptly. And this is just definitely like the 3rd book in a series, and it's just like not that great. And I read it. It's a reread. It fulfills the prompt of a book that has a seemingly perfect character, because that is Ayla to a T, and to some extent also John Delar to a T. So there we go. That fits that prompt. So those are the 7 books that I have finished in the first 2 weeks of August. I have a number of books that I'm currently juggling as my currently reading, and I'm really hoping to read a lot of books in August. And also, I have not explained anything about the Tropical Readathon, because I'm going to do that kind of at the end of the month. But I'm also trying to figure out where all these books I'm reading, how they fit into the prompts for the Tropical Readathon. So stay tuned for my end of the month August wrap up, where I explain where all of these 7 books that I've just discussed fit for the Tropical Readathon. And also I will do an official wrap up of anything else I managed to read in the rest of the month of August. So thank you so much for watching. If you have read any of these books that I've talked about, definitely leave a comment down below. If you participated in the Enneagram Readathon, let me know that too. Go Team 3. I'm glad we got 4th place. We had the fewest members on our team, so I felt like we did a really great job. And I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and